Hello and welcome to Quiet RIOT Midnight Mass. I'm Alex Andreou. This is a very short, late night little pellet of a pod from me, just me, on an issue that I have personally struggled with for several weeks now. I have tried to let it go, but I just cannot. And now that Biden has made the decision to step aside, I think it's right to talk about it. And it is the treatment of Biden's age and apparent cognitive decline by commentators, and especially progressive commentators. Now, let me start by saying that I think Biden did the right thing by stepping aside, and that I think he should have done it much sooner. As a matter of fact, I think he should have not even put himself forward for a second term. This is because whether we like it or not, whether it's fair or not, electoral politics is about image and about a constant evaluation and review of the strengths and weaknesses of your image. And it was always painfully clear that his age and its consequences would be the main line of attack by his opponents. And why that matters is because Trump's plans for the US need exposing, and anything that sucks oxygen away from that is inherently a bad thing. I also think that as progressives we have a duty to get better at always grooming the next generation and handing over the reins in a timely way at the best moment possible. Don't do an RBG. This is how progress works. It is not about the self. We stand on the shoulders of giants, but this requires giants willing to be stood on. So believe me when I say that I understand completely the stakes. I share your anxiety about it all, your frustration. I see it all extremely clearly. I gripped the arms of my chair with every gaffe and every stumble. But what I saw unfold, the way this was treated, the tone, often involved a sort of gratuitous cruelty and vicious glee that did not need to be there. It served no purpose. And I think it has set the fight to remove the stigma from age-related frailty and cognitive decline back by years. Every mistake that could have been made was. First of all, everyone decided that they could definitively diagnose Biden from a few video clips. Let me tell you, you can't. There are 100 conditions that can masquerade as dementia. My father showed every classic sign. It turned out that cerebrospinal fluid was not draining properly, so it was putting increasing pressure on the outside of his brain, especially memory centers. After it was drained, a very, very simple procedure, he recovered almost all of his cognitive ability. An aunt of mine had a small stroke. It affected her speech center, just her speech center. Her reasoning functions were untouched, but she would say banana when she meant kitchen, then get incredibly frustrated with herself because she knew that was wrong. So not only did a host of commentators feel comfortable enough to make a diagnosis remotely, but went on to predict precisely how this would all unfold, what came next, and the time scale. And let me tell you again, you can't. The one thing every expert and every piece of literature agrees on is that such conditions are entirely different for each person. They have long intervals of no symptoms, especially early on. They are devilishly difficult to diagnose accurately. They're not even monodirectional. They can plateau for years at a time, then suddenly decline. But the main thing that so many people appear to get just absolutely catastrophically wrong was the effect that such conditions have precisely on the understanding and acceptance in the patient that they are unwell. people would accuse Biden of being selfish and arrogant and refusing to step aside. How can you demand that someone withdraw because their brain function is impaired and simultaneously claim that they have perfect, unimpaired agency to make that decision? Have you sat across someone you love and told them that it's time for them to relinquish their bank account or stop using the cooker, or that they can no longer go out on their own? Do you know how hard their brain will fight to deny their condition? Do you know how often depression and paranoia are the handmaidens to dementia? How common it is for the patient to believe that people around them are conspiring against them. They're gaslighting them. Now take that and put it in the context of someone who is the most politically powerful person in the world, someone who has existed for 50 years in an environment where rivals almost always are conspiring to take your power. Biden has spent a lifetime being told you can't do that and then doing it. So how much more difficult do the conversations that I talked about become in that environment of intrigue and power? So when a prominent, supposedly progressive journalist chooses to amplify that clip of Biden saying Putin instead of Zelensky, edited for maximum effect, of course, with the words "holy shit" as a comment, when people loop bits of Biden freezing up to make it look like he froze for much longer, or when they compile little snippets of him stumbling or falling over, I mean, he doesn't see any of it, but thousands of other people do. And some will have just had a devastating diagnosis like that. Or even worse, they are avoiding going to the doctor for fear of it. And some of them will be their loved ones, contemplating years of being a carer, dreading it, not knowing what comes next. So why deny Biden the most basic thing we all crave publicly? Respect. Why not afford him that? Why not make the point you're going to make with kinder words, with less flippancy? Why not arrange public functions to take account of his age? Why make him stand for hours at everything? Why not come up with, I don't know, an alternative security protocol that involves boarding Air Force One from a jet bridge? What function of the presidency exactly is proved by him climbing endless stairs and falling over? What message does that send to older people or young people who are differently able or neurodivergent? What would we make of FDR in a wheelchair in this environment? Would we make a meme of him? The media, I think, as is so often the case, behaved like a sort of murmuration of starlings, unaware of the frightening shapes their individual decisions create when looked at in totality. But what I found really upsetting was the apologia from people who pride themselves at being ultra-progressive. I got a lot of, yes, I agree about kindness in general, but this is urgent. The stakes are too high. Or it's his own fault. It's his family's fault. They're doing him a disservice. Well, let me tell you, I have experienced that cruelty up close and personal. I have heard all the buts. I have had people come up to me and say that I was disgracing my mother by taking her out for a walk because nobody should see her in this state. I have heard her dearest friends tell me that they would visit, but it upsets them. And what I saw behind it every time is the same thing I see behind all the tweets humiliating Biden for being old or being unwell, because that's what they are, those articles, those posts. They are a public humiliation of a man for being old and being possibly sick. And what I see in them is the same thing I see in how most people behave around any disability. A dread of our own frailty. That is what terrifies us. And for true progressives, that is the biggest battle always, isn't it? That is the hardest work. Our own baggage. But he's not a beloved granddad, is he? One person said to me. He's the most powerful man in the world. There's not enough time to be kind. But the thing is, he is both. He is a beloved granddad and the most powerful person in the world. And the moment you see that, you understand that kindness is not some sort of luxury, that compassion is not something earned by the recipient, but offered universally or not at all. In any case, this was not about being unkind to Biden. He doesn't see most of it. It was about being unkind for no result or discernible benefit, just to express ourselves, just to get out our frustration and our anxiety. It was about being unkind, about the symptoms of a set of conditions that over 60 million families are dealing with right now as you listen to this. So all I say is, let us shape a world that affords them and us dignity, even when, or perhaps especially when, it is not convenient. Right, rant over. Thank you all so much for listening. The full show will be out tomorrow morning. Quiet Right is an audio production by Cooler Heads with Naomi Smith, Alexandra and Kenny Campbell. Music by Mariana Sangeeta. Artwork by Simona Canelli. Quiet Right is a co-production with Sandstone Global.